Should show up here in just a second. Welcome, everybody. Happy Friday. It's good to have you guys all on the call today. And let's start off with our culture piece. And I'm wondering if I can get, let's see, let's have Jason read this one for us. I never know. I think Manny or Arturo read the last one, but I don't keep track of who's been reading, so I apologize. Anyway, here we go.
All
Jason,
right.
if you can read that for us.
You bet. Trustworthy. We are worthy of trust. We are competent and reliable. We do what we say we'll do, and we make and keep our commitments.
Awesome. Any thoughts or comments about that?
Very simple. If you want to be worthy of trust, make sure you're doing the things you commit to, and then you'll become trustworthy.
Yeah. Yeah, and isn't it interesting that, again, we've got not that you're trustworthy, but that you're worthy of trust.
Right.
Something that we strive to earn. So yeah, so Jason, I guess you're nominated to read the culture piece every time, according to Shane. So so that's
oh
good.
Man, listen to late night 70s there, DJ. Nice.
So
DJ Jason.
Yes, exactly. So you guys, I want you to do something for me today. This is typically something we do at the end of our discussion, but I want to do it at the beginning of our discussion because I want to talk a little bit about this. I want you to take out a piece of paper, your computer, your, whatever it is you jot something down on. And like we've done before, I want you to write a minimum of 3 things. And Ivan, I know this is not going to work for you because you haven't been here long enough. Ivan's our new guy in Atlanta, and we want to welcome him out. So good to have you here. But I want you to write 3 things. You can write more if you would like, that you have learned along this journey so far. 3 things that you have learned along this journey of where we are so far in this management training. I'll give you a minute or two here to do that. A couple more seconds here. 3 things you've learned so far. Okay. You can keep writing if you don't have your 3, but I want you to take a look at those 3 and put a check mark by them if you've actually practiced using those 3 since you've learned them. which ones did you, maybe there's 3 that you've learned, but you've only got 2, or maybe it's just 1 that you practice. But have you used any of the items that you put on the piece of paper? And of all of those that you wrote down, which of those like really, really hit home with you? Um, and if you don't have that one written down, then you should write it down. Like what has, out of everything that you've gone through, what's that one thing that you went, you know what, this was just really an eye opener for me. I love it. I really want to do it, or I am doing it, or whatever the case may be. I've had success with it. But what's that one thing that you've got there? So let's talk about this, because I want to review. I want to make sure, again, this is a long program, and we still have a number of weeks left. And it's a lot of information, and that's why we're spreading it out so long, so that we have a chance to learn and to do those things. I remember years ago, I'm an avid reader, and I've read, you know, hundreds of books on sales and all kinds of stuff. But I bought these books from a guy, Steve Schiffin or whatever. I can't remember his name exactly, but they're little books, and the chapters are like 1 or 2 pages long. And I remember one of the things I loved about it was I learned something when it comes to the sales piece. And then I went out and practiced it, because it was such a short thing, and I could just go, hey, that's a great idea. I think I'm going to go try that today. And so hopefully, as we go through these lessons, these truths that we have, that you say, gosh, this was really good. I'm going to go practice that this week and see how that works for me. So let's just talk a little bit. I'm going to start with Maddie. Um, I just, give me one of those things that really kind of jumped out at you, and then maybe name your other 2 that you wrote down.
Yeah, so my top one and the one that stood out the most was just important to understand your team's strengths. And we actually, in the last couple weeks, me and Bree had our whole team go through the Clifton Strengths Finder test. And then on Monday, we uploaded them all into our Google Drive, and we discussed them together as a team, and where we overlap and where we don't overlap, and where we maybe should add people in the future on our team, because none of us have those specific strengths. And then we had a good laugh out of it, that some of Bree's lowest ones were just as highest, or vice versa, that we were like, wow, we're really well balanced that we did that. But it wasn't on purpose. So it was just a fun conversation. So that's been the favorite thing that stood out to me so far. And then my other 2 were, one-on-one should be a priority to connect with your team. I think we've done a good job at putting an emphasis on that as well. And then we need to hire for talent, not just based on a person's resume. We haven't implemented that one yet, but we definitely will with our next hire.
Good. That's really good. Thank you. Ashley Hosang.
I knew you were coming for me.
I know.
Okay, for mom, I just like the way everything that I have learned to conduct better a one-on-one. Then hire by selecting talents and strengths, and to understand better the expectations from me and what should I be expecting from my team through the priority alignment tool.
Yeah. So, those are really good, part of the 4 keys that we, of great managers, right? So that you've listed a couple of those for sure, and that's really good. Thank
And
you.
the Q12, that's a
And
fourth
the
one.
and the Q12, yes. And I mean, we can keep going, right? I mean, there's so many. I think that's what's fantastic about it. Hopefully it keeps, as we think about this, it keeps these things cemented in our mind, and as we practice them and do them, then they become real. And then we see, I mean, the fact that you're talking about one-on-ones, and Maddie's talking about, everybody taking the strengths test, and we're learning what those strengths and talents are. We get to see that for real how it works. And it's not just something out of the book now, it's actually an experience for you, whether good or bad, but hopefully good, but it's an experience. And now it gets in the system, it gets in your system. Joe, what would be yours?
Okay, so number one, I wrote down these, and for good or bad, right? So number one, it really is the manager. I don't know. I think that's probably my biggest observation is that people work for people, right? And who do we work for? And so it really is who you work with and for matters, and how they decide to invest in you and how they work with you and how they communicate with you. All of those things matter a whole great deal. And I just love that that's part of our people principles, that we need to train our managers, right? And that's kind of my second one, is that we care, that by the way that we've done this is less maybe about the training exactly, but it's more really about how cool is it that we are doing this training. Was my second big thing, is just that we really are trying to keep our word on that. It's the manager piece, and try to have this opportunity. And then the last one is kind of similar to Maddie's, which is one-on-ones, why they are so effective, and what you do in those one-on-ones, how you run one-on-ones, why we even talk about culture in one-on-ones. And I just love what it said last week about them. It says it's really, really difficult to have someone's back if you don't know where their back is.
Yeah.
And how else can you have their back if you don't meet with them quite consistently and frequently? So
Yeah. No, that's good. Thank you. Very good. Yeah, just looking at the book, it's the manager. It really says it all, doesn't it? You know. Um, awesome. Let's see. I wanted to ask Maria what her thoughts were.
One of the things that I've taken from all the trainings would be learn your team's talents and strength. This way we can help them grow and succeed. We don't want to set up our employees for failure.
Yeah, I agree. We want to set them up for success, right? And I think that's such an important piece for us to be focused on. That's the goal. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we get into today's piece. So now I could go through and have everybody, but I do want to open it up. Does anybody else want to share, one that stood out to them? Be able to give us an idea what your thoughts are. How have you felt about, again, not the delivery so much, because that gives you a chance to do that anonymously on our survey, but really about what you learned and that way. So let's start with Arturo.
Something that really stood out for me is understand what your employee values. Once you know what they value, you're able to coach them in that direction. You're able to guide them, and you're able put their talent and turn it into more performance.
Yeah. I mean, again, over and over, this is what it's about, is really understanding our people, and so we can be better at helping them achieve success, and all of that. So thank you. That's good. I like that. Okay, Ashley. Or let's see. I've got Jason first, and then Ashley.
Yeah, Carrie, out of order. No, one that really stood out to me was the difference of the hero's path and the coach's path. That struck me because, I've always in the past always been trying to climb the corporate ladder, and that seemed very important to me. But understanding the difference between the hero's path and the coach's path has really opened my eyes in this training. And kind of evaluated myself. Where do I want to be? What am I on? Which path am I on? And how that's important as we hire new employees, to put them on the path with their strengths. And so that really stood out to me in this training for sure.
Yeah. So before I go to Ashley, so how many of you have ever seen the new Top Gun Maverick? Anybody seen that at all? So it's interesting when you think about the hero's path. in that movie, when Tom Cruise came, they kind of called him back. It wasn't about him being the manager as much as it was about him, doing what he does best. It was the hero's path. The whole movie was based around a hero. and and I think that we have to look at those things and say, yeah, this is what I do and I love it and I want to do more of it. So, hey, that's a rhyme. I love it. I want to do more of it. So, all right, Ashley.
Yeah, mine's kind of in that same line. The thing that stood out to me, and I have it written down everywhere, is this one phrase, and it says, "Your most important role may be that of a catalyst to your team." And that really hooked me, and it's written everywhere. My books, it's up on my wall. That really resonated with me.
And what does catalyst mean to you?
For me, it's this being able to set off a chain reaction to help the team grow, to help them see what I see, and help them realize that they can take this and go this way, or they can stay on the hero's path. They can be leaders, give them this space to be whoever they're going to be and do what they do best.
Yeah, no, that's good. Very good. Yes, I love that. Kyle.
Yeah, a big one to me that I've really started putting to practice is defining outcomes and not the steps. There's a temptation for us to define the outcome and then define all the steps towards it. And I found myself doing that in the past, and ever since this idea has come up, I've stopped myself. I might start a little bit like, you might start by doing this and this, then I'll just say, no, why don't you find out how to best tackle that, and it actually works better to just trust people and let them determine how things are done. It's quite surprising how people know what to do, and oftentimes even know how to do it better than I knew how to do it. So that's just a great thing, and it encompasses trust, it encompasses their talent, and it allows you to further appreciate the abilities that our people have.
Yeah, and so many companies don't do that. They don't allow it. And so if people are given the chance, a lot of people are going to do fantastic at it. And but they don't get the chance. They're just always told what to do. And I think that's the problem. So Shane, did you have a comment?
I did. Mine was more about culture, right? And how our culture is our key. And so many organizations talk about culture. And it was interesting when I first came in, that was, some of the first things, Carrie, that you said, and some of the first things that Ted had talked about. And being in a few organizations, right, we start with talking about culture and then it just falls to the side. And we truly live and breathe it. I mean, it is ingrained in everything we do, and that's what makes it so much better.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a difference. I've heard that so many times, Shane, and from different people that every company talks about culture, but very few live the culture or are striving to live it, striving to move in the right direction. And I think that's really part of who we are, what we stand for, that makes us great. And I think when we talk about employer of choice, and Kyle and I have talked about this a little yesterday, when we talk about employer of choice and people see what we're doing and they don't understand, but they see it and they go, wow, that's amazing. That will attract people to us. It will help us become that employer of choice. Again, we're still got a lot of work to do on that, but but we're heading in the right direction. So that's great. All right. Well, thank you all. I think, again, hopefully you keep track, you're keeping notes, you're watching these things, you're rereading some of the material again and again, and understanding what it is we're trying to do as managers, to work with people. This is such a great opportunity, and everybody we work with is different. And so these tools and resources that we're giving help us to kind of be in the right world, in the right frame of mind, and it will shock the people that are working with you. It will shock them because they've never had this experience before. Just like Maddie said in the beginning, we've are now talking about strength. Who does that? Who takes a strengths finder tests, and then we discuss those strengths and match them up and align with the things we need to do? That, I mean, it shocks people, and they go, wow, I mean, this really is happening, and they love it. So very good. Thank you. All right, let's go to our book. Make sure you've got that. It's lie number 3. The best companies cascade goals. So first off, let's describe, what does cascade mean? Cascading, what cascade goals? What does that mean to cascade? Any thoughts on that? Anybody have a definition? When you think of the word just by itself, cascade or cascading, what do you think of?
You ready?
Yeah.
A process whereby something, typically information or knowledge, is successfully passed on. It's what the definition says.
Yeah, usually from what level?
From up, like a waterfall, down.
From the top down. So when we talk about cascading goals, that means the top setting the goals for you, and then you just get to follow them. Okay. So in the beginning of the book, the very first thing that we read about is a runner, and the way that she kind of talked about running the marathon and so forth. Do you remember what that story was, and what did it talk about, this particular runner? What did she do? And why was that important as we talk about this chapter? Any thoughts about that?
Oh, sorry, Ashley.
No, go ahead.
The biggest thing that stood out to me, and I am definitely not a runner, so I can't imagine going and doing 26 miles, but they were saying she couldn't just set a goal to get 5 miles, 10 miles, or halfway, because it's really at that 20-mile mark where your legs start locking up and it starts getting really hard. And so she had to kind of shift her mindset of not just setting like benchmark goals, but like really finishing the marathon and doing the full 26 miles.
Okay, good. Ashley, Labram?
I thought it was super relatable that she had to go to Prague and she had to go to the flat course, and I am a runner, and so it was super relatable to be like, I'm gonna make this crazy thing happen, but I have to do it in circumstances that fit my abilities and my goals. And so that really stood out to me with with her story.
Yeah. Any other thoughts about?
She gave herself time. She gave herself enough time to accomplish it. She didn't say, hey, I'm just going to go out and run a marathon tomorrow. She says, I'm going to give myself 7 months, or I think it was 7 months. And she gave herself time to accomplish that goal.
Yeah.
I also really like the thought process after, and they kind of revisited the story that says how much of that run is really where you meet your 50%. And I thought that was really interesting because, you just divide it by half and it's 50%. But just like what Maddie said, the hardest part is that last little bit. And so where is really 50%? Is it when you hit that wall, or is it even still into that last, what was it, 6 miles, right? I just, that kind of felt really true to me on how many times is it that we think that the benchmark or the halfway mark is a lot closer, and we oftentimes get a little bit told the truth by the experience we wind up having with whatever it is we're working through.
Yeah. So and there's a lot of good things to take out of that story. I marked down here, our goal becomes our companion. So think about that as we think about goals. Our goal becomes our companion, nestled in one corner of our psyche, pulsating, nudging us onward, guiding our thoughts and actions, and giving us the energy to push through the tiredness, the injuries, and the self-doubt. I think that's really an important thing. So our goal, that the very first couple of words in this is so important. Our goal becomes our companion. And so at the end of that little section there, it says, and if goals did this in the corporate world, if they helped us toward what was most important to us, they would be supremely useful. So what's the problem as you read through this chapter? What's the problem with what's happening in the corporate world? Because it says, go into the next section, goals are everywhere at work. It's hard to find many companies that do not engage in some sort of annual or semi-annual goal setting regimen. So what's the problem?
I just feel it is that companies are just not playing this through people's strengths. So whenever you identify these strengths and then you can cascade it down, you get better compromise from your team and you get better results. And it's not only because he is the CEO and probably he's not good at X strengths, then he is going to be like everything is going to come down from him. Do I make that point?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Jason and then John.
Yeah, I think if you just go to the paragraph above that, it states, and if girls did this in the corporate world, if they helped us step toward what's most important to us, they would be supremely useful. So what's more important to us than them? I think it would make us more successful.
Good. John?
Yeah, basically what Jason just said. The goal setting, it talks about how now at this point in time, we have the most goal settings by all these companies that there has ever been because of the influence of books, and he names a few, like let's see, the Progress Principle and a few other, like, you know, how, you know, say humans love to track their progress and they derive joy from each achievement. And even though in the last few years we have seen more goal tracking and not less, none of this tracking does what it's intended to do for the simple reason that your progress toward a goal is not linear. And so it's basically showing that even though we have more tracking and more systems in place to do that, it hasn't nudged the needle in making sure that companies are more successful based on those, because we're tracking, you know, based on performance and we're putting a number to it, but we're not tracking based on performance. We're tracking based on how far along we've nudged the you know, we've moved the ball for the goal to be done. But then we come to realize that reaching your goal is not linear. It's a little bit about what Kyle talked about before we started the class, is just that you set a goal, but you don't set the steps to it. You take a step back. Everybody can reach that goal in a different way. Or like in the military, it doesn't matter where you hit the target from as long as you hit the target, right? So you move around. That's what a sniper does. You shoot, you move around until you get that target. So I think that all this, you know, goal setting hasn't really nudged the needle the right way, because we're not looking at individuals and we're not looking at you know, the mini goals. Like at the beginning of the book, she set up a bunch of little mini goals, but did not talk about her real goal, which was, you know, I just want to get my stamina up. It was simple. So yeah, that's what.
And that's very, and that's great, John. I think that's a really important piece. So as we think about that, so are goals bad?
Not inherently, I think.
No, no. But how we do them and how it's set up is very important for us to think about. When they're cascaded from the company, how does that help us? So there's a difference. We have a balance here. We do have KPIs, and we do have, it says, in the books to define, the expectations or the outcomes, define the outcomes. But how is that different than setting goals or cascading? Excuse me. How is, defining outcomes different than cascading goals from the company? When we look at that, how do we measure that out a little bit? Ashley Labrum?
To kind of keep using that marathon reference, it's as though the goal is stamina, right? She wants to increase her stamina. And it's the difference between a trainer above her saying, in order to increase your stamina, you have to run a Spartan race, versus she's saying, like, my goal to increase my stamina is this marathon, right? And so she's bought into the marathon idea, where she probably wouldn't buy in necessarily to the Spartan race. The results are the same, but the goal isn't hers.
Yeah. And that's the key. The goal isn't hers. And so it becomes, it's a job now, right? It's a job. And so we have to have something there, but it's the way that we set this up. I love it on this is, again, a couple of pages in, talks about sales. And since I'm in sales all my life, if you're in sales, your sales quota will work in a similar way. An overall corporate sales goal is sliced into parts and distributed across the organization. The only difference being that your quota or your team's quota is usually just a single number handed down to you from above, defining you and your work throughout the year, which is why salespeople in most companies are referred to not as people, but simply as quota carriers. Okay. So again, think about that as we kind of dig into this. Joe?
I don't want to hijack the meeting, but I want to ask an
Joe.
interesting question. So let's just not let this question go too long.
No, that's good.
Here's something interesting, right? Because running numbers through profitability, Utah and Georgia need to get to 10,200 hours as soon as possible. And yet that's a cascading goal, right? I've cascaded that down to our team, yet at the same time, that is, as I see it, as the leader, the minimum benchmark for us to be able to be able to start unlocking things and get the markets back on track and getting through profitability aspects. And so it's interesting, because this is a goal that I've had to set in line. And I'm curious, what is everyone's thoughts on this goal that I've had to cascade? And maybe I'm just open to any ideas from everybody regarding should I have cascaded that goal or not?
So let me add something else into it before they answer. Is it a goal or is it an outcome? So
Fair point.
So think about that as you're answering the question. Kyle?
Yeah, I think it's important to have goals. You have to have targets to shoot at, right? It's kind of taking off from John's little comment there. They don't have no targets and there's nothing defined, then we're really kind of operating blindfolded that way. So yes, we do need to have targets and need to have goals. The book's not suggesting that goals are bad. It's just saying we need to accompany those things with meaning, and people need to see the why and understand the importance and how they can play a part in that importance too, and how they can define that for themselves too. So I think it's our approach to goals more than it is goals are bad. Let's just give people meaning. Goals are great, now let's also put some meaning behind them and help people see the importance of those for themselves.
Yeah, yeah. John.
So, you asked the question to Joe, is that a goal or an outcome? And it's a fair question, but I think that Joe did a good job of cascading that thought process that he had. This is where we want to be, down to the team. He hasn't specifically laid out a path for everybody. This is what you need to do, or these are the goals that you need to hit in order to get here. We have had discussions where we all talk about what is the best way to get there, right? What is it that you know, John? What is it that you know, Arturo? What is it that you guys know right now that can help you get there? And so he has given us buy-in. This goes into what Shane was talking about. He said, if you have, companies are very good at telling people what to do, what the goals are, and how to get there, but they're not very good at listening and asking, how do we get there? And so Joe has made that happen while talking to us about how do we achieve this. And so I think, he was opening up that question right now to all of us. What else could I have done, or what could I have done? I think that is key. Basically what Shane said. Very good at telling, not asking. And so Joe has given us buy-in. And so now, even though we might reach the target a completely different way, our goal, our buy-in, our goal is to get there to those hours, And so we're trying to make it happen the best way we can, in putting the knowledge that we have, along with talking with everybody else in the team, and just coming up with ideas on how to get there. So it's given us all buy-in.
Good.
So.
Good. Any other thoughts on Joe's question?
Yeah,
Jason?
I got a comment. Yeah, I agree with what what Kyle and John just said, 100%. I think we have to have benchmarks. You can call them goals, you can call them whatever you want, but as a company, we have to have a benchmarks to reach. If we don't, then we just flounder. We stay stagnant. If we don't have something that's attainable, and I mean, he's not saying, hey, we've got to have 20,000 hours in 6 months. He's just saying, hey, we got to be at these hours. He didn't even give us a timeline, but that's something that we can all work towards to get there. And once we get there, there's going to be another benchmark we got to hit. I think that's okay. That's progression. That's progression as humans, as individuals. That's progression as a company. And so we have to have those in order to succeed as a business, I think.
Yeah. So as we, and Joe, I hope that those have been some good things. I think we're going to cover some more of that as we go along. So as we think about that, is the book saying throw out goals and just cascade meaning? No. Okay. So let's just be very clear about that. I'm not, because, sometimes in these chapters, that's kind of what people go, oh gosh, we get rid of this. No, it's not saying that. So let's understand the real meaning behind this. What it's saying is we're not giving the extra piece. And I don't know all of Joe's discussion to the team. So I'm not going to assume that you did or didn't do any of this. But as we dig into this, what is the book trying to say to us? That we should be cascading meaning, we need to define outcomes. We've already learned that, but then we need to cascade meaning. We don't cascade the goals to everybody. We cascade meaning. So let me talk about that for just a second, because I think this is where companies get in trouble, is that they just start cascading goals and there's nothing behind it. So about 20 years ago, I bought my first hot tub. And the hot tub was a fantastic place for me. I spent 10 years, going into that hot tub. I'd get up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, whether it was snowing out outside or raining or didn't matter. I had it covered. And it was a very great place for me to think and to to just get clarity on things and so forth. So it was more than just going out and having fun. I just really enjoyed it. Then we moved, and the hot tub didn't come with us. And the place we lived in South Jordan, we couldn't have a hot tub, so I was without one for 10 years. I just recently purchased ours. We got it in April after the snow finally melted, so we could get it in. And I've been in it just about every single night. And as I go out, and I sit in the hot tub and I look up, because I don't have a cover on it right now, a pergola or anything like that. As I sit there and look at the stars, which I really enjoy doing, I just have a chance to really think and ponder and get clarity. One of the constellations, and I see lots of things. I usually see about 4 or 5 satellites every night. I've seen the Starlink. Is it Starlink? I think that Elon Musk. I've seen that probably 3 times now go over, and which is really kind of cool to see. And out here in the country, in Vernal, we actually see stars. There's lots of them. If you are in a city, you don't get to see them as much. But the one that jumps out the most to me every night, it's always right in a certain spot when it starts, and then it moves, but it's the Big Dipper. And I love it. It's brighter than a lot of the stars. It's very easy for me to identify. Why do you think the Big Dipper is important? Because it's been something I've learned as a young kid about the Big Dipper. Why is the Big Dipper important to me? What are your thoughts?
It points to the North Star.
It does.
Its handle points to the North Star.
Yeah, it does. And
Or maybe
I
it's
love.
no, it's not the handle. It's the two pan. The 2 pan stars point to the North Star.
It's the bottom. Yep, it's the bottom 2. And if you understand that, and I've loved this, even when I had my, my hot tub before, and I used to identify that North Star, which was tremendous to me. I loved being able to find it. It had meaning. Okay, it had meaning to me. Always has had meaning. So that's a wonderful thing to be able to identify and learn. And so as I tell this story, the reason I tell it is because we have meaning. The company has meaning. There is meaning and purpose in our company. So let's talk about meaning and purpose. And this is where I was saying to Joe, I don't know if this was something that was mentioned. I don't know whether it was or wasn't, but is the purpose and meaning behind the outcomes being discussed. And this is where we want to really kind of get to. So what is our meaning and purpose? And as managers, this is important for us to really start to solidify. Now, is that going to differ a little bit or change a little bit? It could over time. But ultimately, our meaning and our purpose pretty much stays the same. What is it? So if we're cascading meaning instead of goals to our team, what is it to you guys? What's the meaning behind what we're doing? Any thoughts? I have discussed it with a lot of you.
It's personal growth. Are we growing as a human? That's the most important thing, I think, to the company.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Thanks, Jason. Any other thoughts? Agree or disagree?
I would say that it's been said this many times, but we spend more time here than we often do inside of our houses and with our families. And my mindset is that if you really look at the way your life is structured, right, you have at least 8 hours at work, at least 8 hours of sleeping, depending on everyone, right? And when all is said and done, you have, especially if you have young kids and other things, you only have a little bit of time to become who you're meant to be if you're not working on it all the time. And so if you want to work on it, if the only real way we have to become the people we're supposed to be and better versions of ourselves, if we work on it while we are here inside of our business.
Good.
And
yeah,
that's, I think, the point, right? Is for me why that culture matters so much, is because improving ourselves and our thought processes and becoming better humans matters. And if you're not working on that, you're going the other direction. And we've got to find a way to do that inside of both our work and our home lives, not just, Christmas and Easter or something, right? I'm just having some fun there, but that's the idea for me.
yeah. And any other comments on that? Okay, I'm going to share something with you. Give me 2 seconds. Tell me when you can see it. Somebody, Joe?
I can see it. Yeah. It's a little
okay.
small, but you want me to read it?
No, because this is really long, but I want you to read something. Read the second paragraph.
There are 2 primary whys for me personally. Is that the one?
Yep.
Okay. And these then lead to our why at SMART: to use business to promote individual employees' personal progression and to build the necessary economic engine to fund that.
Yeah.
Any business's economic engine is attracting and keeping profitable customers. Anyway,
yeah,
sorry.
That's good. That's good. So so this is again posted in our Tribalry. This is why we exist. If you haven't read that, or you haven't read it lately, or you haven't read it before you have a discussion with your team about outcomes, I suggest we do that. That's the meaning. Okay, I've had this discussion with Kyle yesterday, and Ted and I have talked about this numerous times. Ted has said, if we get the people thing right, the rest will follow. Is that a good discussion? Is that a good thing to kind of plant our flag in? If we just get the people thing right, the rest will follow. Does everybody agree with that? So, and why we exist is for number 1, personal progression, and number 2, to build an economic engine to support personal progression. So yeah, Jason, you said it in the beginning. That's really, the meaning. So how do we explain that as managers when we're talking about outcomes? How do we explain that? And then what do we do with those when we give those outcomes? What do we expect our people to do? How do we share that, or should we share it? And then what do we expect from our people after we've shared that when it comes to the outcome that we give along with it? What are your thoughts? I'll start choosing. Okay. Arturo, you have a team. You have outcomes and things that we need to do. How will you use this and cascade meaning instead of goals to your people?
The first thing that I will utilize is what is the meaning that they're looking at the job. Uh, why are they at the job first? What is the need that they have and where they want to get, and how I can help them overcome all those obstacles as a leader, as a coach, to get there. Once they see that I'm available to them, they will also become available to us. and they will also strive those goals that we all have in mind to higher and higher and higher. And this is progression. And when there is a steady progression, the company is doing good. But if there is ups and downs, that means that employees are looking for motivation one week and the other week they don't have motivation. And that's not what we want in any company. We want people that are in a company that are gonna be steady with their motivation all the time, and they always striving for the same goal.
Okay, good. Ashley Labrum, you have a team. How are you going to use meaning and cascading meaning as opposed, and then what do you expect from them when it comes to goals? Whoops, you're on mute.
So I actually walked away and went to the restroom. So I'm not in the same place you guys are. I have no idea what we're talking
Oh,
about.
no.
Sorry.
Okay, that's
Help me
okay.
out.
Yeah, we'll help you. Okay, John.
Well, I like how Ted put it in that post. Build people, right, and then build the economic engine. So it's funny how it all ties in together, right? Right people, right fit. That's one of the things that jumped out at me throughout this course. It was one of the things that clicked. Finding out what people are able to do and what they want to do. So Arturo spoke about that a little bit. He said, how do you talk to them, you find out what they need. And if you become available to them, they'll become available to the company. And so what you do is you talk to them about where they want to be. Joe and I were talking yesterday about different plans on how to hit the goal in paths of progression for everybody. And we found out that we have multiple options. We have multiple options, and that's the best way that's the best place to be, when you have multiple paths to get to the same place. So one of them is talking to your people and first finding out what they want. Where do they want to be? The hero's path, the coach's path. And then when they tell you what they want, then build the plan on how to get there, right? Build the economic engine. So you talk to your people, you find out what they need, what their wants are. Once you have their wants, then you talk about your vision, and you talk about where we want to be. How do we get there using your wants and your needs? And so that's how I would cascade meaning down, is first find out what they want, what they need, where they see themselves, and then aligning that with the overall goal that we have as a company, building their own path to get there, with them, not without, and not telling them how to get there, but using their own needs, and their own wants to get there. So
Yeah,
that's how I would cascade it down.
good. Thank you. Kyle?
I just want to say, sometimes when in our one-to-ones, I think it's important, and this isn't every time, this is occasionally, to put work aside and get to know the individual that you're working with, and be close to that person. I think it's important. You will find out much quicker the strengths and weaknesses of that person when you truly care about that person and get to know that individual. And it's important to know all those things. It's important to know what to keep them out of. It's important to help them be in the places that they want to be in, and show interest in people.
Yeah.
But not because a book says show interest, but because we love and care about that person type of interest. And I think that's really where it's at. And that takes some time. That really does take time. It takes getting to know people. And over time, this becomes easier to do. But I think we need to kind of seek that inspiration and head that way. Sometimes it's just finding out how life is outside of work and how things are going for them as an individual, and not always just bombard goals and work stuff all the time. I think it's important to really get to know the individual, love and care about that individual, and you will learn far more about that individual.
Yeah, no, that's really good. And I think that, you know, there's a statement that's always, you know, you've all heard it. I don't care how much you know until I know how much you care, and that really ties into it. So it's really simple, you guys. I think that we don't want to make things, you know, real complicated in what we're saying and how we do it. So before I get into that, Maria, you had a comment?
Not really a comment, but I was gonna say, I'm not gonna say this just because he's like my boss and like I get paid because of him, but Kyle is a great manager. Like he really is. Like I know that I can come to him with business stuff or like my personal issues that affect me work-wise, and he's like very understanding. So if you guys haven't worked with Kyle, you guys should because he's amazing.
Good, thank you. And Kyle didn't pay you, right?
No, unfortunately, he did not bribe me to talk him up.
No, that's good. No, Kyle is that way. And I think that that's a great example. As we have these discussions, as we look, we do have outcomes. We have outcomes and KPIs that we have to hit. We know, you know, to do that. But it's so much more important when we can share the meaning behind the outcomes. And I always, whenever I start a new person, whenever we do traditions, the last thing we talk about is our meaning every time. Many of you have heard me go through this with you. It literally, and I mean this, nearly brings me to tears every time I read it. It's that important. So if we can share that meaning, then, you know, again, and Jason, you've said this many times, it's the reason that you know, really looked at our company and came on board. And many of you feel the same way. That meaning, the fact that we're talking about people's personal progression, and the reason we make money and revenue is to support that. That is a tremendous thing. I don't know if you grasp that, but it's such a tremendous thing that's the meaning. And we need, as we talk about, gosh, we have these outcomes we've got to hit. How can we do that? Well, John, will you set some goals based on this outcome for us? You know, and John understands now the meaning behind what we're doing this for. You know, is it to make the board of directors or the shareholders, the stockholders, more money? Is that the meaning? Is it to make Ted rich? I think Ted would tell you he's already taken care of on that side. It is, the meaning is personal progression and building an economic engine to support that personal progression. That's our focus. If we just get the people thing right, the rest will follow. Will you please remember that as we talk about this to our people? When you have goals and outcomes or KPIs and outcomes to share and expectations, will you please express the meaning behind it? And then ask them to set goals, their goals, clear and specific and detailed goals like the runner to be able to achieve that. That's it. That's the meaning. It's not a hard meaning to remember. All of you should remember that. So the next time I ask this question, what is the meaning that we cascade? Everybody should raise their hand and say, I know exactly what it is. Okay. All of us should have that ingrained in us. It's what we do. Any other comments or questions about, I mean, they shared the story of Facebook and Chick-fil-A. And the purpose behind that was to say they have a specific culture and meaning that they're trying to portray. And if you don't fit that, if somebody comes in and says, that's a bunch of hokey stuff, probably not our best candidate, right? This is where we're at. This is, you know, you should go work for that company if you don't believe in these things that we share. And that should be shared every time you hire somebody We should be sharing that meaning and purpose with them. And maybe you are, and that's fantastic. If you're not, you should start. Any other comments, questions about that? Okay, here's your homework assignment. Everybody's got this book, right? It's the manager. Everybody except for Ivan, because Ivan's brand new. Maybe he does have it, I don't know. But in the back, again, we've talked about this. There's a little green slip of paper. Maddie knows well what this is. Maddie, what is it?
It's your code to get the Strength Finders test.
This next week, I want you to use your code and take the Strength Finders test. Is it a hard test, Maddie?
No, it probably took like 10, 15 minutes.
Okay. And are you graded? Did they say, okay, you passed and or you failed, and so you can't be with the company anymore?
No, definitely not.
Okay. Everybody's homework assignment is to get that green slip of paper out and take the test this coming week, so that we can start understanding our own, where we kind of stand as well. Joe.
So I want to share this with you guys. This is free. It is called understand.me. And just as Carrie said, this is a place to start so you can understand your other team members. Not required. This is one that I've personally enjoyed. But if you type in understand.me/Joe Hempel, you'll see my profile. It has, as you see, Clifton Strength Finder right here as my number one as the achiever. Kind of interesting, as you click on the achiever, it'll tell you all of your top here. And as you're setting it up, you can see these, and it's an easy way to share what it is some of your strengths are with other people. And it's a great way to kind of take everything and put it all into a way to understand it.
Will you share that in the chat so we have it?
I'd be happy to.
Okay. Jason?
So in other words, Joe needs more hugs.
Yeah.
Don't hug me, Jason. Pat on the
do
back,
that?
no hugs.
You said your love language was physical touch, so you better give me more hugs, buddy.
It's also words of affirmation. So just saying, I was pretty close between those two.
Yeah.
High five, pat on the back for the shoulder, but words of affirmation is a little bit more work appropriate, just so you know.
Yes. Good. Good. All right. Thanks, Joe. Yeah, please share that, and then we'll make sure everybody has that. So take the test next week. That's your homework. And next week, we're scheduled to have Ted do goal setting, but that's not going to happen next week. We're going to do Smart Truth number 12. So lie number 6, if you can see that. People can reliably rate other people. So we're going to do that first. And then the following week on the 23rd, we'll have Ted present his piece and go from there. So, and then we'll be back on schedule after that. We don't have a whole bunch left, but we will be into July for sure with the program. So please read that next chapter, lie number 6, in 9 Lies About Work. Can people reliably rate other people? It's a great chapter. Read that.
Carrie.
Yes.
Just sort of I don't know if everybody has these expectations or not, but the plan is to keep pressing forward once, we're almost out of these lessons. We called this manager training, like how to be a manager here at Smart. But then we're going to move on and start doing management and leadership training, more with the emphasis on leadership. So it isn't, unfortunately or fortunately, whichever way you look at it, that this is going to stop in a couple weeks. I think by mid-August this will probably be done, mid to late August, depending on how that works. And then we may choose to take a week break or something, but most likely we will just keep the cadence and push right on. And it's a lot. So there's probably I don't know, another 20 weeks of stuff. So we'll just see how it goes. But anyway, just so everybody's aware that this section is wrapping up in probably mid-August, but this was manager training, like how to be a manager. Like Joe said, it's all about the manager. That's the key thing. If we're not getting the results, if the people aren't happy, if the people aren't staying, if the culture isn't being done, anything comes back to the manager. But then we want to go into more general topics of leadership and management, and that will happen next.
Yeah, thank you. And that was my point, was that this particular section will end. But what a blessing! What a blessing that you're involved in this program, and that that we each get a chance to continue to learn and grow. And what's the meaning? Personal progression, right? So we're all getting that personal progression, and what a great thing that is, that we can be a part of that. So yeah, thanks, Ted. I appreciate that. We don't want it to end. This is the cool thing, is we don't want it to stop. This isn't about rushing through a program and then forgetting about it. This is about continuous education, so that we constantly are learning. Constant and never ending is what Tony Robbins used to say. So anyway, very good. So you have your assignment, and you know what you're supposed to read, and you know what you're going to be doing as far as taking the test. I'm really excited to see what you guys think about the test, the assessment, I should say. I hate the word test. I never was a good tester in school, but I do like the assessment thing, analysis. So you guys have a fantastic weekend. Hope that you're doing something fun and worthwhile. And we'll talk with you all next week. Appreciate it. Thanks, you guys, for coming out. Have a good one.
Thanks, Gary.